Welcome to Feel, Peel, Thrive, formerly Food Feels Banana Peels, a holistic podcast created to inspire a shift in perspective. Here, we explore what it really means to feel, peel back the layers, and thrive from the inside out. Each episode invites you to consider a shift in your perspective on what it truly means to be healthy, beyond quick fixes or trends, and to see wellness as an empowered, inside-out journey rooted in awareness, accountability, and self-trust. I'm your host, Laura Pfeiffer, and I'm here to guide honest, heart-centered conversations that help you reconnect with your body, realign with your values, and live with greater clarity, connection, and vitality. Because when we learn to feel, we can heal. And when we peel back the stories that hold us back, we make space to thrive. Hi, and welcome to Feel, Peel, Thrive. Today, I'm honored and excited to welcome a truly inspiring guest to the show, Dr. Njideka Olatunde. She's a compassionate leader in holistic pain relief and the visionary and founder of the Focus on Healing Wellness Institute. For over 40 years, Dr. Olatunde has helped thousands of people break free from the grip of chronic pain through gentle, medication-free approaches rooted in the healing power of intentional touch and reflexology. She's a master reflexologist, an educator, an author, and a pain relief advocate, and she blends time-honored healing traditions with modern wellness practices to guide people toward comfort, resilience, and true well-being. Whether it's physical, emotional, or mental pain, her message is clear. Relief is possible, and the body has remarkable capacity to heal when supported with care and connection. I'm so grateful for this heartfelt and empowering conversation that we're going to have today with you, Dr. Olatunde, one that offers hope and tools and a new way of understanding pain and healing. Welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me and for that warm and wonderful introduction. Thank you. I'm
My
looking forward
pleasure.
to sharing.
I'm so excited to chat today because you and I have a lot of similarities in views and the way that we holistically support people. And, we had an interesting initial conversation that was supposed to last about, 10, 15 minutes. And I believe we were on for 3 or 4 times that. So I'm excited to get a little bit deeper into our chat today. But tell us first, please, Njideka, tell us about your journey and what's brought you to here.
All right. Long story, but I'll make it short. As a child, I wanted to be a doctor. And I grew up, with home remedies. And I also, in a time when doctors came to your home, they did what was called house calls. And I'm seeing that as a child. I'm saying, wow, that's what I want to be when I grow up. I want to be a doctor who's a healer because I saw them as healers. But by the time I got to school and I saw that the training was not going to prepare me to be a healer as a doctor, I changed careers and went into social work. So I became a social worker and I covered the whole gambit from infants to seniors in every phase of social services when I worked. But during that time period, I saw most of my clients were always going to the emergency room for healthcare. And I said, something's wrong with this picture. So I need to see what I could do. And that was happening at a time when it was opening up to alternative and natural forms of healing. So then I went back to school and got my naturopathic degree, and which was going to allow me to be the healer I wanted to be as a doctor. And from there, I started focusing on integrating reflexology into my practice. And then the reflexology involved into understanding the connection of touch and pain, which led to creating Focus on Healing. So that's my humble beginnings.
That is very humble and very short, considering the duration of time that you have spent and what you have really developed over these last 40 years. And we're going to get further into that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. I too have that want to support people in an alternative way. And I think it's important to clarify that not every natural practitioner practices the same. And I really thought when I kind of got into this field that, go to a naturopathic doctor. A naturopathic doctor is going to recognize mind, body, spirit. They're going to take all of that into account and they're going to work with that. Well, come to fast forward a decade or two. That, in fact, isn't the case. Can you tell us a little bit about operating as a naturopathic doctor, as you do? And also, I know that there are a lot of naturopathic doctors who are more kind of in the box and operating from a treat disease supplement based type practice. Can you elaborate on that a little bit for us?
Oh, wow. That's a powerful and it's a good question. Um, when you think of, I know when we talk about the evolution of naturopathic practice, there's a lot in terms of trying to be on the line between allopathic and traditional. And I think we have to define traditional. When you talk about naturopath from a traditional perspective, it's about dealing holistically and incorporating nature as the healing tool. And also one of the things that I kind of focus on is that I'm not really the healer. What I am is I am the practitioner who is assisting my clients in the healing process. Because if you're going to talk from a holistic perspective, the healing begins with the client. They are the healers. And it's about empowering them to bring out the inner healing capacity that they have, which is known as the energy that's inside them. And so I think that's to answer your question when you're looking at the difference. Am I going to practice naturopathic medicine in the form of allopathic, or am I going to practice naturopathic from the natural holistic approach of mind, body, and spirit connection? So those are the two schools of thought.
Yes, absolutely. And I definitely align with your school of thought. Obviously, I always say allopathy has saved my life, but it's the natural and holistic practices, tools
Sure.
that have helped me to really to thrive. And
Yes.
it's not a quick journey. It's not a quick journey. It's a journey of so much, dedication and commitment and fostering self-awareness and self-love and all of these things that begin to
Mhm.
unfold. And allopathic medicine is generally about quick fixes. And that's where we've come to as a society that we want to tap a magic wand or take a magic pill, and then all of this is going to go away. And for people who have been on this road for a while, we understand that evolution is a process. Evolution of ourselves as individuals and as a collective. It's a process, and one that we each have to commit to individually in order to evolve so that collectively we can evolve together.
Exactly. And when I think like, to expound upon what you just said, one of the things that happened with me in my practice when I talk to my clients, I know that everyone who comes to me, they come to me because they are in pain. And just like when you go to a store, you know exactly what you want. So you go to wherever it is and you make your purchase. Well, when clients come to me and they're in pain, the only thing that they want is pain relief. That's all they're interested in. They're not interested in anything else but relieve my pain. And from that, I started understanding that the missing piece that I found to helping my clients relieve pain is called touch. And that's when I incorporated touch to reflexology. And when I say touch, the first form of touch that I do with my clients is known as listening. And when you're listening, and we never think about that, but that is the first touch, is to listen. And by listening, what I am doing is I'm letting my clients talk to me and tell me about what's going on. Because one of the things that's not understood is pain and stress go hand in hand. You don't have pain without stress, and you don't have stress without pain. So when a person goes to the doctor and they tell the doctor they're in pain, the first thing the doctor's going to do is say, we need to do testing to find out what's wrong before I can prescribe a treatment or to work with you. But in the meantime, here's a prescription for the pain. But not knowing what's causing the pain is the problem. So when I
Yes.
use the touch approach, by listening, the client is talking to me about their problems and everything that's there. But what I'm listening for is, what was that stress trigger
Hmm.
that caused the pain? And that's where we start realizing what's needed. When I get to the treatment part, I'm talking about the integrative approaches, because there is no one therapy that can do it all, because each system needs certain things. So did I hear that your pain is a result of you're in stress and you need to relax? Or do we need to do a body cleanse? Is it that we need to look at acupuncture? We may need to look at chiropractic. Do we even need to get into deep breathing? Or is it some energy work? It's a combination of things that
Hmm.
is utilized to bring about what we want to get to, is optimum relief from the pain and put you back on track to health and wellness. So that's, a bigger picture when we start talking about how to relieve pain. And it's a lot more than a few minutes session with, okay, I've come up with this diagnosis and this is what we're going to give you for this. And that most of the time does not solve the problem.
Agreed. And I think it's really important to mention that in holistics, or you and I and many holistic practitioners are looking at people as individuals. We are
Yes,
assessing an individual,
yes,
body, mind, spirit, emotion, the totality of the individual. An individual does not fit in one box, two box, three box, four box. An
exactly.
individual has to be completely assessed based
Mm-hmm,
on what they are presenting, right? And each person is
mm-hmm.
going to manifest different symptoms. And we might
True.
all be rooting in something similar. Let's say abandonment. I have abandonment issues from when I was a child, but abandonment
Mm,
is showing up for me in this part of my body and you in this
yes,
part of your body.
yes.
And so that's where it's so important, I believe, to use these tools that encompass mind, body, spirit, emotions, because
Mm-hmm,
I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but I always
mm-hmm.
I always get excited when we start to talk about this because it's
Sure.
the whole body approach. The whole body approach, like you said, involves multiple disciplines in
Mm-hmm.
order to support the multiple bodies that we have. And that's where I
Yes.
feel that we need to begin to raise our awareness, our own individual awareness of ourselves as humans, because
Mm-hmm,
we see ourselves as a physical being. But we
mm-hmm,
are so much more than a physical being. And oftentimes, myself included, when I became very, very ill, it was because I was not listening to all of the signs that were coming in from other places, my mind, my emotions, all of these things. It just began to manifest in my body to the point that my
mm-hmm.
body shut down. So by the time people are coming to you and I in pain, there is significant imbalance already that has occurred because the body will store and hold what has not been processed. And so that's where, as alternative practitioners, we can help in supporting, providing tools, eventually resolving, but not with a quick fix, and helping people to learn about what is manifesting and why. We spend so much time in society trying to ignore things. We're ignoring the pain, we're ignoring the emotions, we're ignoring all of this stuff. And I say all the time when I'm practicing and supporting clients, what if we tuned into it and we allowed it to be there and allowed it to deliver its messages to us? Because our bodies can teach us so much and they're trying, and that's why they begin screaming
Mhm.
eventually.
What you said is 100% correct. And when I'm working with my clients, I tell them they have to understand that you have to stop treating your body like an automobile. And when I say that, what I'm saying to them is you go to your practitioner taking your body in there like it's an automobile. So, which means you're relating to your practitioner like your mechanic.
Mm-hmm.
When your car breaks down and you say, okay, well, the engine light comes on, or I see some leaks or whatever, and you tell that to the mechanic is mechanically trained to know exactly how to solve that problem. Your practitioner cannot operate like that when you come to them and say, well, like, I'm having pain in my chest and I need to know what to do about this. That's when you and your practitioner have to get in alignment, in oneness with working together collectively and cooperatively to manifest the treatment and the relief that you are seeking. And I say that because we, to respond upon what you just said, we give our power away to the practitioners.
Mm-hmm.
They are not the ones that actually know it all. You are the one that knows what's going on inside your body. And we can go back to when you first felt that pain and you ignored it. Then it came back again. And he said, oh, this is feeling a little bit uncomfortable. So I'll go do some over the counter remedies. Then it comes back again with a real punch. And you said, oh no, I can't deal with this anymore. Now I go to the doctor. In the meantime, you got pain medication that you're taking. The problem has not been addressed and other things are manifesting. So when you come to practitioners like us who deal from a natural, you're looking for a quick fix. There is no quick fix because the process was a long journey to get to the point that you now need a remedy that you wanted to be relieved. So you have to work with nature, with your practitioner in a timely process, just like the contributor of the pain that started. And understand it's not always a bad thing. It's called the lessons of life.
Mm.
Each and every day we wake up to a new lesson in life. Now, if you are fortunate to learn it, then it moves on and you get a
Mm-hmm.
new one. If you don't learn it, then you have to keep repeating it and repeating it until you do. So we have to understand that all of these things that are happening when we're focusing on it from mind, body, and spirit, it's a part of the whole evolution process of who we are. Now, it can be comfortable or it can be hard, but it's your choice. That's when you look for assistance to help you get through it if you can't do it on your own.
Absolutely. And I do believe that everything comes back to perspective. It comes back to perspective, and we must first be open
Yes.
to
Yes.
alternative practices. Because if you come to me for an energy medicine session and you say, this is junk, I don't believe in it, any of these things, but I'm going to try it, you are going to get junk from it. You're going to get
Exactly.
nothing. If you are
Exactly.
not open to this type of experience, if you do not genuinely believe that this can help you, then
Mm,
there is no point
mm,
in wasting your time, wasting a practitioner's time in going to see somebody who has alternative medicines to share with you because you will receive absolutely nothing. So I believe that the first thing that we need to do is really look at what our perspective is on health and healing. And if we do not believe that we can heal ourselves, then we need to do some work in order to get into a space of receptivity to learn that this is possible in order to then move down the road with a practitioner who can support us this way. If we believe that the only thing that can heal us is a doctor in medicine, definitely giving away our power, then that's the journey that we're going to have. And this all comes back to choice. So much is about
mm,
choice. And do we choose to continue down the same path that has got us to where we are?
mm,
Or do we make a choice to choose differently this time? And maybe it sounds
mm.
different and hokey and out there and all of these things, but we are all shifting right now and we are seeing that Western medicine, the way that it is not solving the issues that people are manifesting in a daily life. Chronic illness is so high right now. We are seeing chronic illness in younger
Yeah.
generations, even
Yeah.
metabolic imbalances,
Mhm,
all of these
mhm.
things. And there is a direct route to how we are treating ourselves and our bodies correlated to what we are seeing in society.
You are 100% correct. And one of the things that we're going to have to understand, because a lot of times people ask in terms of the work I do as it relates to relieving pain, which is what I focus on. You said the key word belief. Belief is the key because with belief comes trust.
Mm-hmm.
But the belief has to begin with believing and trusting yourself. Now, how do you get to that point? That means one of the things I've learned and I'm seeing now more than ever, we've got to start looking at our mindset
Mm-hmm.
because our mindset is the key to helping you move forward in life in terms of receiving all that you are entitled to. You've got to look at your mindset. And when we focus on mindset, what we're talking about is sometimes there's some things you've got to let go of. And once you can understand, like you said, in terms of believing, you've got to sometimes do a belief cleanse. There may be belief cleansing that's needed because it worked yesterday does not necessarily mean that it will work today or it can be applied to what's going on today. I say that when I say that, I'm talking about when you talk about giving away your power in terms of healing, a lot of that is based on what we're now going through as what I call the 24/7 gloom and doom.
Mm-hmm.
If you are connected to that all day long, and that's becoming a trigger that you are internalizing, that's going to make things it's going to make things more uncomfortable for you, piling up on all the stuff that you already are dealing with. That's a part of your stress, pain triggers. That's just fueling the triggers that's already inside of you. And I think it's time for us to start paying attention to that because the way things are going now, it's about change. And you emphasized that earlier when you talk. We are in a changing environment right now, which means that you're going to have to open up your minds, your bodies, and your spirit to be accepted of the changes that are coming. And they're going to be uncomfortable, but it's going to be for a reason to enhance your growth and development, to take back the power from pain, to take back the power from you not being able to be the person you were actually created to be. Because that's what's happening right now in this period, redefining yourself. And to redefine yourself, you have to be healthy and well.
Yes, absolutely. Very well said. I love that. I definitely agree. Mindset is huge. And what I have come to also learn is that when we begin to, as we develop more and more self-awareness, we can begin to develop interoception, which involves getting to know emotions in our bodies.
Mhm.
And emotions manifest in our body about 2/100ths of a second before thoughts in our mind. So,
Yes.
if we can begin, and this is where the somatic work that I
Mm-hmm.
do and I love to be a part
Mm-hmm.
of is so helpful. If we can begin to understand how emotions manifest in our bodies. Oh, I know this is anxiety. This is where anxiety lives. If I don't catch that anxiety, then what's going to happen is I'm going to trigger these thoughts that run this
Mm-hmm.
nervous system loop that bring me
Exactly.
into those negative behavioral
Mhm.
patterns, reactivity, whatever it
Mhm.
is that I've been playing out for my entire life since whatever trauma began
Exactly.
happened. And so this is where, I continue to come back to somatics, emotions at the root of our health. How do you feel about
Okay.
that?
I agree 100% because of the fact when you start talking about your emotions, you also have to understand that if you are bombarded with negative triggers all day long, you are giving fuel to that trauma that you are experiencing that's causing you pain and stress. And that is so important. It's your emotions. And we have to also understand that there's nobody on the face of the earth right now that has not gone through trauma or is not experiencing trauma. It's generational. We're all
Mm-hmm.
going through generational trauma, and it's being manifested in full steam right now with
Mm-hmm.
all of us. This is a lot of what's happening with us health wise. It's
Mm-hmm.
because of generational trauma. And I take that back to a missing piece in the healing process is our cultural connection. We all have a culture, and you're
Mm-hmm.
going to have to start looking at the cultural connection as we implement a healing process and recognize where we are culturally. All of this is coming out, and people often realize are not realizing that the remedies or treatments of your elders in your family worked can also work today because
Mm-hmm.
all of that was based on belief. All
Mm-hmm.
of that was based on touch. All of that was based on mind, body, spirit connection as it was implemented. And once you come to understand that, you're on the road to having the key to healing yourself naturally and holistically.
Absolutely. Can we can we tell people a little bit about intergenerational trauma and how when we say that you and I understand that, but there are probably people like they're like, what are you talking about? Like generational trauma? I'm just carrying my own stuff. I'm not carrying my parents' stuff or their parents' stuff or their parents before them.
The thing you hear everybody talk about, the DNA, your genes. That's what intergenerational trauma is about. If you think if if you go back into your cultural history and say, for example, if your parents were immigrants and they had to come all the way over here to America, there was stuff going on in their country that they internalized that caused them to decide to leave and come to the Americas for a new life. but that trauma was still in them. And as the generation, all of that's still a part.
Mhm.
That's an example of what we talk about intergenerational trauma. And that plays a part in different roles in our life. We say, oh, well, that was yesterday. But it also triggers in your DNA
Mhm.
health issues. Another thing, you go to the doctor, what does the doctor tell you? Oh, it's inherent, it's genetics.
Mhm. Mhm.
Really, what they're talking about is intergenerational trauma. That's what the genetics really is.
Mhm.
It's the passing on. And so, if we understand that, and you know that, okay, if I'm going to look at the fact that my genetic factors are to hypertension, okay, that came from the past generation that's now, I'm manifesting it now in this time. What do I do about it? Okay, I know that I may need to change my diet. So, like, the family always ate this way, but it's also the trigger for the hypertension. So that means I need to change my diet so that I can kind of turn this around and we go another way. These are the kind of things that we got to start looking at as a part of our whole healing process. And that's why I say you've got to look at the cultural connections. Remember when you open up and talk about how it's individual based on the cultural connection.
Beautiful, beautiful explanation. Now, what came up for me while you were talking about that is that not everyone will manifest something physically, say your high blood pressure. And years ago, when I did my applied holistic nutrition, I read this book called The Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it changed my perception completely on health and disease because it talked
Mm-hmm.
about because he's an MD, but he's also into metaphysics. And so what he talked a lot about is nature versus nurture. And the fact that we can be
Mm-hmm.
carrying things in our DNA, we
Yes,
don't always manifest them. If
yes,
we are coming from safe, happy homes where
yes.
we have been nurtured and supported and loved, and we've developed these belief systems very, very early on, well, you are very, very lucky, number one, because a lot of us have not come from that type of home.
Mm-hmm.
But those are going to be the people who aren't genetically manifesting these
Yes,
things, right? When we bring in triggers, stress. Stress is
yes,
number one with everything across
yes,
the board.
yes,
Allopathic and natural
yes.
medicine can agree on this. Stress is number one. When we begin to bring in external stressors and then we don't
Mm-hmm.
know how to navigate them internally, this is when these genes begin to
Yes,
fire up and we find
yes.
imbalance setting in.
Exactly. That is so correct. And that's a part of the teaching in the work that you do, in the work that I do, in terms of getting you to think a whole nother way. Because what we're doing is helping you to understand how your body operates based on who you are. And once you connect with your body in that kind of one-on-oneness, in terms of you are better able to heal and be able to counteract stress triggers when they come because, oh, yes, I know this is connected with this. And I'm feeling this way because, yes, I was thinking about this particular problem. And instead of me taking a deep breath, I internalized it. And so I internalized it. Now I got physical symptoms related on this particular problem that I spent my time focused on when really what I should have done, took a deep breath and let it go.
Absolutely. And these
And that's the key.
These are the holistic tools, right? Breath is free, right? Breath
Yes.
is free. I say that all the time. Like you can pause, stop anytime, take 10 deep breaths, and you can
Mhm.
reset your entire
Yes.
nervous system.
Yes.
Breath affects the autonomic nervous system. The breath will occur naturally, but if you choose to control it, it will affect your heart rate, your mind,
Yes.
the entire physiology of your body. And you don't have to go to somebody to and pay them to tell you that. You
Thank
can
you.
just stop and pause and breathe. And these, I believe, are the tools that holistic practitioners can begin to bring into the awareness of people in society, because
Mhm.
we are our own healers and we do have many, many tools that don't cost a lot of time, don't cost a lot of
Yes.
money, all of these things, but we have to be A, open to them, and B,
Yeah.
aware. And so
Yes.
that's where practitioners like us are helping to bring awareness to people
Hmm.
in the general population and saying, hang on a second, you don't have to give your power away over here. How about you claim that, take it back, and then we're going to work
Hmm.
together to find what
Yes.
works for your health. And
Yes.
I think it's important to say too that, not every person is going to align with every practitioner. And that's really, really important. I know in my own
Oh,
health journey,
definitely.
you have to kind of interview them and sit with them and see how you feel about how they work and what their philosophy is, and more important, how you feel when you are with that person. If you feel that you can trust that person and be open with that person, and it be in a non-judgmental type environment, then that's going to allow you to open up and to be authentic and genuine, and for you to establish this connection. If you
Hmm.
feel, you know belittled, or anxious, or not in alignment, or whatever it is, then that's not your practitioner. And this is where boundaries come in, and it's okay to say no. Thank you very much for your time today. I appreciate it, but this doesn't feel good for me.
Hmm. It reminded me when I used to teach reflexology, and when my students were becoming my graduates, I always told them, you're now my colleagues. You're no longer a student, you're my colleagues. But I want to tell you this. There are so many people out there, and you have to understand that even with my expertise, there are people that I may not be the reflexologist for, but that means one of you all may be that person, may be just that person.
Mm-hmm.
And we, even as practitioners, have to understand that we're not for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But if I was able to introduce the concept and they were able to grasp it, and then they were able to find somebody else who could do the concept that I shared and they felt comfortable with, we all are winning. It's a
Yes.
win-win. And that's how we have to start looking at, in terms of what we do is assist.
Mm-hmm.
We are we are the body's assistant in the
Mm-hmm.
healing process.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about reflexology, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there are people out there who are like, this is really new. I know something about the feet, reflexology. How can reflexology help me? Isn't it just a nice foot massage? Tell us a little bit about reflexology. You've been teaching and certifying students for many, many years now.
Okay. The way I introduce reflexology, it's by definition, it's the art and science of working specific reflex and pressure point nerve ending points that are found on the hands, the feet, and the ears. And if you ever look at a chart of the anatomy and look at the nervous system, you'll see that all of the nerve endings begin in your head and run straight through your body, ending in your hands and feet with particular points. Now, to help your listeners understand exactly what reflexology is, I always use this analogy. Say, for example, in your house, the electricity goes out, and all of a sudden, all you have to do is go to the circuit breaker and flip the switch, and the electricity comes back on. But if it doesn't, then you have to call an electrician in, and then what they'll do is they'll do the wiring and say, okay, we got to connect some wires. See that same example with the reflexology. Reflexology works the nerve endings, which are the electrical wiring points inside the body that's connected to the brain, which is the communication center of the body. So if there's a shortage in the nerve ending, a reflexologist is the one who reflects that nerve ending location on the hands and feet to open it up. So now the energy can flow through, because what reflexology does is it releases toxins, it relaxes the body, as well as it brings balance to the system. So you can see the reflexologist is like your electrician to the body. So that's the concept in terms of how reflexology works and what it is.
So is reflexology something that people um, should be leery of? Is it going to be painful? Talk a little bit about that process, if you could.
Okay, I'm going to qualify that in two different ways.
Okay.
There are some people who would say it should be painful, and there are some that say it shouldn't be. Now, the way I answer that question is that in our culture, we're not open to pain. We don't want to feel any pain. But in other cultures, when you're doing reflexology and when pain happens, that means that there is a release coming.
Mm-hmm.
That
Right.
shows that. So in Western culture, we have kind of modified it to get the same results. So in terms of whether it should be painful or whether it should, the objective is to be able to remove what we as reflexologists call stress in the nerve endings. We're looking for that stress in that nerve and how can we remove it so it can come out through the normal channels of elimination. But the process should be one that is comfortable, but still produces the relief and the solution that you're looking for.
Right. And coming in, I would imagine coming in without expectation is one of the most important things because you present to your practitioner and I'm making an assumption, but I feel like you likely do some intuitive guidance as well when you are tapping in, right? You go to a practitioner like a Reiki master, an intuitive uh, reflexologist, these kinds of things. So you're also using intuitive cues that you're getting from the person's body to help support and guide that healing process within them.
Basically, I have to go back to my social work experience. Is the first thing that's going to be done, and a lot of natural practitioners in all of the natural modalities are not good at this, but documentation is crucial. You need to document. Once you get the documentation, now you have something to work with. Because I tell a lot of practitioners, don't get so caught up in, oh, I found this particular point here, so that means you have this. That's not necessarily the case, because I can find a stress area in a nerve and does not necessarily mean that it's a health related issue. It could mean that an old injury. It could also mean that there's a say a sore or weak point actually on the hands and feet that I am reflexing. So you have to kind of disqualify all of that before you get to say, oh, I'm pressing here in the kidney area and we're dealing with kidney stones. No, you can't do that, because that's not always the case.
And that's where intuition guiding, as opposed to using the logical mind
Yes.
and using logical, rational A equals B, but we know that
Yes.
A doesn't always equal B for everybody. So
Exactly.
yes, treating people individually like we were discussing earlier.
Exactly.
That's beautiful. I have I years ago I had a reflexology session from one of my teachers, and she
Mm-hmm.
did intuitive reflexology, and it was really great. It was a great
Mm-hmm.
experience, emotional release. I
Yes.
definitely had emotional release, and so when we say pain, it's not always the pain that we think of, like the physical pain in the body. It's
Exactly.
releasing emotion that has been stored in there, and that's
Yes.
painful. The reason that we've stored it is because it's it's painful. It was painful when it happened, so it's painful when it comes out. However, the beauty of releasing this emotion, like we said earlier, is that it goes. We
Yes.
move through it and we can learn from it to get the
Yes.
teachings, the medicine, and apply that as we move forward so that we don't have to
Exactly.
have that experience again.
Exactly. You said it so beautifully. That's the sum total of the healing process. That's what healing really is.
Yes, agreed. And when we, change our perception, then we can realize that this is all here to teach us and to guide us and to support us and to help us in our own growth and
Mhm.
evolutionary process.
Mhm.
We have
Mhm.
to get out of the victim mentality. And there are a lot of people who are victims right now, things, and I used to be one. I used to be one for sure. Why does this keep happening to me? Why is this happening to me? Why do I deserve this? All of these things. But when we realize, hang on a second, these things are happening for me, and they're an opportunity for me to get to know myself at a deeper level, what is going on, as opposed to, I'm a victim. And
Yeah.
we can't help victims. The only person
Right.
who can help you is yourself, and that begins with changing your perception of what's going on. And then you can go seek help from there, people who can
Yeah.
support you and guide you in your own health and well-being.
That's so true because when I think of victims, I'm also that ties back to what we would talk about earlier. We talk about mindset. But one of the things I know in working with people who are in pain, people have been in pain for such a long period of time that when you start talking about pain relief, that's something they can't even possibly imagine
Mm-hmm.
because they have accepted the fact that I'm in this pain. This is a part of my life. It will be
Yeah.
with me always.
Yes.
And so that's when you really have to get into dealing with, okay, now we got to look at mind cleansing. We got to look at helping you to remember what it was like when you didn't have pain.
Yes.
Go back to that feeling,
Mm-hmm.
go back to that memory. And now
Mm-hmm.
we can bring you forward to what you remember of not being in pain, how you can have it now.
Yes. Yes.
Because you are controlling that process. You blocked that process so it could not move forward with you. So now what we got to do is what? Delete that middle phase so we can connect that to your present.
Yeah. And I think that can, and I know that can be very difficult because it requires taking self-accountability and
Mm-hmm.
realizing that you've actually been hindering. And I say the proverbial you, but this was for me.
For
I
all
was
of
actually
us.
the one who was hindering my own
Yes.
self in healing. And then it becomes this whole process of forgiving
Yes.
oneself, right? Forgiving
Yes.
for yourself for holding yourself back, for not being open to whatever, other supports were there, and then moving forward, right? But we have to
So true.
become aware and accepting of where we are in the present in order to move forward.
I like what you said because that's one of the things that I do with my clients. And the way I explain it to them is there are two things you have to look at because what we're really talking about is giving value to yourself, valuing who you are,
Hmm.
regardless. And what I tell them is you're going to have to make a decision about you and your body. Is your body a temple or is your body a warehouse? If
Hmm.
it's a temple, it's something sacred, it's something valuable, it's something you cherish and you're going to protect it. If it's a warehouse, it's something I just store stuff in and wherever it lands, that's it. And that's what I'm carrying around. So when you move from your body being a warehouse to a temple, now you are in a state of ready and willingness to receive that which is supposed to be in the temple that your body represents.
Beautiful. I love that. I love that analogy, and I use that analogy of my body as my temple. And as I continue to, learn more about myself, it becomes a lot more conscious choices of, do I want to put this into my body? I know the effects of when I put this into my body. For instance, alcohol. Not that I've ever been much of a drinker. My
Mhm.
father was bipolar and an alcoholic, so I have always been very skeptical of it, but came to realize maybe
Mhm.
over the last, 10 years, even small amounts of alcohol do not sit well with me. And
Mhm.
so, at the point now, it's like, am I going to have a glass of wine for an occasion? Here and there, I will. And I know that sometimes there actually are going to be some effects from that, but I feel like it's like my body is my temple, and I know how it feels to feel great in my body. And so now I consciously make those choices. And as we become more connected with ourselves, I believe, like, in supporting clients, that this is what begins to happen. You make those choices. Am I going to, put this into my temple and know that there will be potential repercussions? Or do I honor this divine vessel and no, this is my temple, and I know that these toxins do not support, my own healthy life. And so I'm going to pass.
To add to that, the key to that goes back to valuing yourself. When you know your body and you deal with it from a physical human perspective, if you're valuing your body as a temple and you do something that you know can have some effects on you, if you are able to recognize it and know how to deal with that, that's still honoring and valuing your temple. Because I did this from the physical perspective, but now I know that, okay, I did that. So that may mean I need to do a cleanse. That may mean I need to do a deep breathing. I may need to do some energy work to invigorate, so that'll go out of my system a lot faster. These are things, so that way we still are valuing ourselves and not being hard, because sometimes we flip that if we stay with that physical in terms of, oh, I did this bad thing and now I got the negative triggers coming. But the mere fact, oh, I did this, I knew what I was doing, but I also know that I need to cleanse. I mean, you may be eating a holistic diet, but you may want to go back to your taste buds may be calling for some of that little old ways. Okay, if I decide to do that, I know that I immediately need to cleanse. I
Mhm.
was doing that to do what? Satisfy my taste buds, not to nourish my system.
Hmm.
So understanding the difference between the two, so you won't be hard on yourself in the process.
Absolutely. And I mean, we could keep talking and talking about so many things, Njika, because I mean, this leads me into like intuitive eating, right? And the fact that if we understand that those foods that we often eat and we eat in excess, copious amounts,
Mhm.
we're looking to fill a void of some sort, an emotional void that's not being met within us. So it comes back to developing healthy relationships, and those healthy
Mhm.
relationships begin with ourself,
Yes,
right? Beginning to find and consciously create a healthy relationship with ourselves, then we can look at all
yes,
the external implements, whether it be
exactly.
food or drugs or whatever it is, sex. Like there's so many different ways that we cope externally, but we have to come back to, that
Mhm.
my body is a temple, my body, mind, my spirit. I am this, however you view it, I am this magnificent being. And so when we find value and respect for ourselves, then we can begin to make these conscious choices for things that do and don't serve us, and see where we need to continue to work, because it's a lot of work being a human.
Oh, definitely. I think that we don't understand our reasoning for being here really is to be able to develop our inner talents, skills, and ability so that we can do the number one thing that we're here for, to make a difference in the world.
Hmm.
That's what we're here for. And
Hmm.
that is a real process, because it begins with, we have to get ourselves in position where we have made a difference in ourselves so that we can give it to others in terms of helping and encouraging them to make a difference.
Yes, that is 100% true. And I feel that that's exactly where a lot of people are lacking because they're lacking in purpose. Lacking in purpose. When we are doing what we are meant to do, what is in alignment with our soul, however you want to call it, it lights us up. It ignites us. It brings this fire. It feels really good to do what you're
Mhm.
doing. And we have, as a society, over, oh, well, generations now, just accepted that we're just going to take things as they are. We're going to do what we need to do. We're going to work 9 to 5. You need to work hard. All of these things that were passed on down the generational line. My mom used to always say money doesn't grow on trees and you have to work hard at all of these things. And so you internalize that and it becomes, oh no, like money doesn't grow on trees, so I have to do whatever I have to do to make money. It creates this scarcity mindset, and it's taken continue to work with that scarcity mindset to get out of that and know, accepting and welcoming in abundance, and that I don't have to, run my body ragged and you know and work and live the way that my ancestors did in order to survive. I want to thrive, and that's what this podcast is about. Feel, peel, thrive. That I believe is the way to do it.
Mhm.
Feel your emotions, release, peel the layers that are there, and we thrive when we align with our purpose and we begin to live happy, healthy lives in the abundance that the universe has to offer us when we are aligned.
That is exactly, that exactly defines what we are all about. As you were talking, I was thinking about how one of our major problems is it, it still ties into the quick fix. Is we want to be led. And if you want to be led, that stops you from being who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're in, and I don't think people are really understanding the healing energy that is happening among us now. It's about moving away from leadership and you
Mm-hmm.
start leading yourself.
Yes.
And
Authentic.
that's what's
Yes.
happening right now.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that's going on is about you leading yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what I call taking back control. You take back control by leading yourself. And it's going to be all right. It's not going to be how we mentally perceive that it is to lead yourself. Leading yourself is what the energy is calling for us to do right now so that we can start making a difference to be able to see. I'm sure the listeners on here want to live in peace. I'm sure the listeners want to be able to have a life that's filled with love, joy, happiness, and harmony. And all of those are healing qualities. But the only way that can happen is when you step up and say, I'm taking back control to live my life how I want to live it based on love, peace, joy, and harmony. And it may not be in line with everybody else, but guess what? It's all right because it's my life.
Yes. Beautifully said. And I think it's important to emphasize control because in my own journey, it required a ton of relinquishing control. When we aren't in control from a young age, we tend to try to control everything outside of us as we get older. And I've come to learn that the only thing that we really have control in this life is ourselves. Everything else is completely out of our control, and all we do is create stress and drama and negative emotions, and all of these things are generated when we try to control external factors. So, if we can begin to find control of ourselves and create safety within ourselves, it will help and have this outward manifestation eventually happen that things will align. But it all begins with controlling ourselves and relinquishing control of the things we can't control.
Exactly, 100%. Agree with you 100 because that's what it is. And I hope that your listeners actually hear this message and remember that we talked earlier about generational trauma and it can be changed. This is how you start that process. This is where the generational trauma, the chain that has been carried all the way through to now, you be the one to break it. And you break it when you take back control of who you are, the way you want to be, so that those future generations will have that same type of energy.
Yes, for sure. So let's talk a little bit because I would love if you could impart some wisdom on our listeners and help them a little bit with any maybe tools or wisdom that you can offer. If somebody is in pain right now, Njideka, what would you recommend to them? What advice can you give to them? Yeah.
The first thing I start off with is, if you're going to look at relieving pain medication free, the first thing starts off with is gratitude.
Mm.
And with gratitude, the two most powerful words that's recognized worldwide is called thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And when you can understand how to start being thankful, and thankful is also a healing touch. To be able to say thank you to someone, you never know how those two words may have been a healing point for someone. Someone just needed to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
Or if someone does something for you that's unexpected, learn how to say thank you to them. So now you got a two-way exchange of healing energy, one with each other. And the next thing I say, which is the most powerful thing leading up to how to relieve pain, is understanding the importance of deep breathing.
Mm.
Breath is the next foundation in terms of the healing process.
Mm-hmm.
Learn how to breathe. And I say, like in the morning, when you wake up, the first thing is being thankful. Then the second thing is take 3 deep, thankful breaths. So that way, now you have laid the path for your day to be in harmony with the universe as you move forth throughout your day. Now, if a pain comes up, and you may need to pay some physical attention to it. And I'm going to give you what I call the pain relief that you all know. And before I share that with you, I want to kind of go back. I'm going to give you a reflexology pain relief technique that you can use. But before I get to that, I want to tell everybody on this call who's listening, everybody knows reflexology, but they don't know that they know it. And everybody on this call, at some point in time in your life, they have experienced reflexology. And let me tell you how. If you can remember and go back to the child, and there's a little thing that mostly everybody used to do with babies, it's called this little piggy. And if you remember this little piggy, and we're circling all the toes and all that, the toes and your fingers are the nerve ending points to your head. That's where all the nerve endings are. So when your parents were circling those little toes, or you are circling little toes of your little babies, and all of a sudden they have been real hyper and they start calming down, they start relaxing, and some may even go to sleep. You've activated the relaxation nerve endings to bring about that relief. So you've all know reflexology when you think back to this little piggy. Now, if you are ever experiencing pain, one of the things you want to do, I'm going to show my hands here. You're going to take your thumb and you're going to do what's called a bending motion. You're going to bend the thumb up and down. And so you're going to be walking across your thumb in a walk across motion up and down. That's what you do with the thumb. Then you take your hand and you're going to walk up the palm. You're going to walk up the palm of your hand. You're walking up the palm, walking down the palm with your thumb on the palm side and with your fingers, your four fingers on the back side of the palm. And you're doing them both together. And you're walking. So you're walking from the heel area of the hand, going all the way to to the base of your fingers. So all you do is you just walk straight lines, just walking across. Whenever you feel pain, just get in the habit of walking the palm. Make it a habit. Just walk the palm of your hands and deep breathe. Just relax. Light breaths. And that's a kind of what I call your fast emergency pain relief, because what it does, it calms you down so that the pain you're not feeling, you're sending a message to the brain, send the body's natural pain relievers known as endorphins to relieve the stress wherever it's in the body. Because what you're doing is you're activating all the nerve endings in your hand. You may not know the exact reflex point on the hand, but that's what I call the reflexology pain relief backup system. That's your backup system.
That's great. Thank you. And I'm sure a lot of people are doing some of these things. I know for me, I do some of this stuff and
Mm-hmm.
you don't even know it, right? And
Exactly.
that, walk the piggy, that's something that we can do too, likely, right?
Yes.
Like just
And
moving
you
our
the
toes
same
and
thing. You could do the same thing. You could do the same. Walk each finger. After you do the palm, you can also take and walk up and down the fingers, front and back. Those get in the habit. Let your hands be your healing tool
Mm,
and your relief tool. Your hands are powerful. Your healing begins in your hands.
beautiful. I love that. And again, these are free techniques, breath, utilizing our own hands on our own bodies that we can use to mitigate pain, discomfort without obviously those allopathic measures should
Mhm.
we make those choices. And I mean, I think it's important to mention that there is reason for allopathic medicine.
Oh,
Don't
definitely.
get me wrong,
Definitely.
and I'm not saying that allopathic medicine doesn't work. It saved my life. However, there comes a time, I believe, in each and every one of us in our journeys where we realize, you know what, I think I have to do more for myself.
Mm-hmm.
When we're in maybe an acute phase of something or something just starts and we're overwhelmed and we have all of these emotions and all of these things, maybe that's a time that we seek, healthcare support in one way.
Yes.
However, when we are ready and we all reach that point at a different time in our life, the realization that, you know what, I want to take responsibility for my health, and this is where we can begin some of these simple techniques
Mhm.
that can help us, and we have to feel those effects in our bodies, right? So
Exactly.
we try them, we do them, we repeat them, and everything happens with repetition. This is the way that we learn. So, do this over and over again. Use the deep breathing when you get up in the morning,
Mhm.
gratitude journals, walking your palms like Njika showed us. These are just a few very simple, easy, and a lot of people say, I don't have time. I don't have time. We all have time. It's just how we choose to use it. So,
Exactly.
do I sit on Instagram or Facebook or whatever it is, or do I take 10 minutes, maybe 10 minutes of my entire day
Mhm.
before
Mhm.
I go to sleep or when I wake up in the morning to get myself into a certain space? And for me, creating more authentic rituals for myself has been one of the most profound shifts for my nervous system. I have
Mm-hmm.
to say, and that's I'm sure that's what you also help support people with, and I do as well. It's creating these practices in our lives that we can come to, and certain tools we use at certain times, and some things we use all the time, to get us
Exactly.
into a grounded state of receptivity, whatever it is that, we're need, so that we begin to meet our own needs. And that's what the goal
Mm-hmm.
is here. We meet our own needs. And so, as
Exactly.
holistic practitioners, we're not looking for you to come back here every time you have something going on. It's like, no, I'm going to teach you the tools. You're going to see how they work in your body, and then you're going to do it. You don't come to me to fix you. You fix you. I'm giving you tools. You try them out. You see what
Mm,
works. We try something different, and we go from there.
exactly. And that goes back to the fact of the matter is that work with your practitioner. And when you work with your practitioner, you'll get the results you're looking for. And once you come to understand that, it opens up a whole new world for you that you probably never possibly imagined could exist, because we're not to live here on earth in stress under
Mhm.
no circumstance. That's not where you weren't created to live in stress. And once you understand that, and just like Laura just said, the number one cause of all health challenges is stress. No matter what label the doctor has told you as a diagnosis it started with stress. And
Mhm.
once you understand that, and be able to learn how to connect the pain stress that produce the triggers that cause the illness, now you have the tools available to you to be about healing for optimum health and wellness. I'm an advocate of all of us having optimum health and wellness.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Njideka. I really appreciate it. You've shared some amazingly valuable tools and insight. And is there anything else that you would like to share before we close today? I think we've been on an hour now, a little bit more perhaps.
One of the things I'd like to share, first of all, thank you once again for having me. But I want to share this. In the African tradition, when you visit someone's home, you always bring a gift. So I have a gift for you and your listeners. I have put together a reflexology medication and addiction-free pain relief poster that your listeners can download, and then they'll have all the different techniques that you can use to relieve pain. And all you have to do is go to Touchology, reflexology.com to download the poster that I give to you.
Uh,
Also, if you want to visit me, my website is focusonhealing.com. Also on my website, I encourage you to go to my contact section and just write down any questions you may have in terms of relieving pain. And I definitely will get back and answer them for you. And basically, I'm available on all, like, LinkedIn and those type of social media sites. And that my practices are virtual. So I'm available to you online to talk about relieving pain without stress.
Absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for that kind and generous gift. I will include those in the podcast write-up so that we make sure that everybody has those to click on the links and go to your website. I am very, very grateful for our chat today. And Jika, thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for your time and for sharing those simple techniques that you've shared. And then plus what you are sharing in addition is going to be so, so helpful for a lot of people who are looking to support themselves in a holistic manner. And we have to start somewhere, right? So
Yeah.
why not
Yeah.
start with breath and pain management, because we all have pain to some degree at some time, whether it's physical, mental, or emotional. So if we can start to utilize some of these tools that are available to us through amazing practitioners like yourself, that you're giving away out of the kindness of your own heart because you genuinely want to help. And that's what this is about. Feel, Peel, Thrive is about genuinely wanting to help people who want to help other people feel good, because that's why we're here. We're here to feel good, to enjoy our lives, to have fun, and to just be in the wonders and amazement of what this universe has to offer. And it requires some work to get ourselves into that space. But as somebody who has come from a long line of a lot of imbalances, I can tell you, it's possible. And so when we hold that belief and align with anything is possible, anything can truly happen. Thanks so much for tuning in to Feel, Peel, Thrive. I'm so grateful you're here and part of this space for reflection and growth. If something from today's episode spoke to you, please share it with a friend or someone who might need it. And take a moment to rate, comment, or leave a short review for me on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube. It really helps the podcast to grow and keeps these conversations flowing to more people who are ready to shift how they see health and healing. Together, we can help more people feel, peel, and thrive from the inside out.